We all like to be liked. And in healthcare, probably more than anywhere else, our self-worth is tied in very, very closely with that caring nature of being a healthcare professional. And when somebody doesn't like what we do, or they make comment on it, or something negative pops up, a little bit of us dies inside. And I know this because it's happened to me, and I know this because I talk to other people, and I talk to other people who are scared of putting themselves out there because they're scared that people are just going to come and knock their head off, that tall poppy syndrome. Or, in the case of somebody I was talking to recently, scared of getting a negative review. And that was holding them back from posting on social media. And that's really sad. It's really sad that people feel that they can't put themselves into their marketing and put themselves out there on social media because somebody might say or do something which is going to make them feel tiny. That really infuriates me. And it doesn't infuriate me because the person feels that way. It infuriates me because of the way the system seems to behave around people just being themselves. And there are people out there who seem to have none of this kind of internal wrangling and this fear of putting stuff out there. They seem to be completely bulletproof when it comes to any kind of negative criticism. But in my experience, they're not. They're just much better at resilience. They're just much better at having those tools and techniques with which they can use and utilize in order to get them through that whole process. And these are things which can be developed. But in this video, what I want to talk to you about is this fear of putting yourself on social media or marketing because you're concerned about getting a negative or poor review. Because that does stop people from putting themselves out there. The fear that somebody might not like what they do or think they've done a terrible job and give them a 1-star review on Google or Facebook or wherever it is. That is a real fear for a lot of people. But quite often the gift of a negative review, and I use the word gift very specifically, is that you get the opportunity to learn something about your audience, to learn something about your business and get some valuable feedback. And also, you get an opportunity to be able to do something about it, to change, to grow, to develop. And that negative feedback and the process you follow afterwards is really useful, and it really is a gift. But before I give you some insights on how to kind of manage that process, I want to take you outside and tell you a story. So a couple of years ago, a friend of mine, a podiatrist, had that one thing happen on their Facebook business page which nobody wants to happen. They got a 1-star business review. And what made matters worse is this review came from somebody who had never been a patient and was actually another practitioner who had already dropped into their inbox to make some pretty nasty allegations already. Allegations around unprofessionalism, allegations around coming into their place of work and giving them some abuse, all of which were completely untrue. But despite that, and despite my friend contacting them and saying, you've made a mistake, the messages continued and the 1-star business review stayed there. So understandably, this is pretty distressing for my friend. And she reached out to me and said, look, what can we do about this? I've reported them to Facebook. Facebook don't want to know anything about it. I've asked them to remove the review. They're not doing it. What can we do? So I came up with a little plan which went like this. Instead of responding to the inbox and asking them to remove the review and trying to have that conversation with them there, we took it a little bit more public. We actually took our response with the original text from their message, and we put it in response to their 1-star review. And we asked them out in the open, in public, if they'd like to reconsider that review and reconsider their actions. And the interesting thing was that in all the time that there'd been some discussion and some reasoning and trying to get this person to remove the review and trying to get Facebook to remove the review, nothing had happened. Within hours of us dropping that response onto the Facebook business page, the review disappeared. Now that story might be unusual in terms of, the cause of the negative review and all the background history behind it. But the processes by which you can address that are still really useful learning points. And I'm going to show you now a process which you can follow in order to work through those negative reviews and resolve them. Okay, so you've had that 1-star review come up on your social media. First thing to do is acknowledge it. Acknowledge it internally is to recognise that you've had some feedback, and instead of looking at it as a negative thing, look at it as a positive opportunity to kind of reinforce your brand and reinforce the things which are important to you. Obviously, if it's a review which is unfounded, call it out. Don't be shy to call it out publicly and say, you know what, I don't actually recognise you. I don't actually recognise that the treatment. I actually don't think you've been a patient of mine, and I think this is a false review, and I'd ask you to remove that. And you can report that to Facebook or Google, wherever it is. Obviously, if it is a review of somebody who you've seen, don't call it out in that way, because that wouldn't be professional. But if it's one which is definitely someone you haven't seen, call it out. If it's someone who you have seen, acknowledge it publicly. Don't be scared to talk about it publicly. I mean, obviously you need to keep respectful of GDPR and data protection and personal data and all that kind of stuff. But just a very simple thank you for getting in touch with us. Really appreciate you bringing this to our attention. It falls short of the normal standards that we would expect. What we'd like to do is explore how we can change that for you, how we can improve it for you, how we can make it better so this kind of thing doesn't happen again. And then give them the opportunity to either reach out to you or tell them, I'm actually going to reach out to you today via email, via phone, whatever works for you, in order to start that conversation. But by acknowledging it publicly, you are showing the people who follow you that you do take these things seriously and you will deal with them. Then you take everything else offline. You go and deal with this behind the scenes and come to a resolution that way. Quite often, when it's been acknowledged publicly, been dealt with beautifully behind the scenes, people will then come back and they may change their review or they may update their review based on those things. If they don't, you can always ask them to do that. You can always ask them to come back and have a look at their review and say, okay, we've dealt with this separately. Would you be happy to go back and just update people on the processes which we've followed? The third thing is to actually share what you've learned. And that might sound like a really strange thing to do, but being able to be open and honest about what goes on within our business, what goes on within our approach to things, and how we've learned, how we've grown, how we've developed is really important. And it's really important for a number of reasons. It's really important because it shows that we are invested in our business and how that business grows and develops. And it's also important to show that we do listen to the feedback which comes in and we make some changes. And a lot of our patients and clients and customers, that's what they want. They want to know that their worries and concerns are being listened to and we understand them and we can act upon them, we can solve their problems and we have a solution for them. And this is part of that process. Share what you've learned from it. Be open and honest about it. Because the reviews which people give you will be read by others. And if you go onto somewhere like Amazon and you look for a product or service, think about what you do in terms of the reviews. Yes, you'll go and look at the 5-star reviews, but I can guarantee you'll also go and look at the 1-star reviews as well. Every time I go onto a Facebook page and I see reviews, I will quite often look at the 1-star reviews, and then I will look at how the business owner has handled them. because I will have far more faith in a business owner who is able to go through this process, to call it out when it's wrong, to acknowledge publicly that there is something which needs to be looked at, and to be open to dealing with it and to share what they've learned, because they're going to be the business owners who will manage my problems better because they have emotional intelligence and self-awareness. But negative reviews are a gift. They are a way of being able to take a good look at your business, a good look at you, a good look at the things you're doing, and respond to the feedback you're getting from people. And quite often, if you can take that negative review and you can turn it around and you can address the problems, it's far more powerful for you in the long run. But one of the key points here is you need to be putting yourself out there. You need to be out there talking about the things that you do, how you help people, how you solve their problems. You need to be putting your head above the parapet. You need to be risking the chance that somebody might not like what you're going to say, because that helps you to make a difference. Putting yourself out there is going to make you vulnerable. It's going to put you in the spotlight. It's going to make you feel at risk. But I'll tell you now, from my experience, that's what really counts, is putting yourself in the arena. And to finish off this video, I want to read you a passage from one of my favourite books. This is a book by Brené Brown called Daring Greatly. And in here, she puts a quote from 1910 from Theodore Roosevelt. I'm going to read it to you now while you look at a time lapse of some fluffy clouds. It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who becomes short again and again. Because there is no effort without error and shortcoming. But who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly.